This is part 2 of our lecture on models, theories, and frameworks. Please make sure you remember the items you should consider when you're choosing a theory, which is at the beginning of the slide presentation. In this slide presentation, we're going to talk about social learning theory, social cognitive theories, and reward systems, which are all related to the same concepts. So these are basic tenets of these theories. The first one is that behaviors can be shaped. And shaping of a behavior means that you make the changes in behavior in small steps. So if you want to make someone stop smoking, you have them go from a pack a day to a half a pack a day to a quarter pack a day, and you shape the behavior gradually. And of course, this requires rewards, what we'll talk about later. If you want people to lose weight, you don't say, hey, let's lose 100 pounds. You say something like, let's try to lose 5 pounds a month. And then, so you have smaller units that you're trying to achieve, and you're shaping the behavior. Or if you want people to maintain healthy weight, you say, okay, what we're going to do first is we're going to keep track of everything you eat, and then we'll identify items that you should reduce. So maybe in the first month, you reduce all sugary drinks to half of the sugary drinks. And then you cut back on fat, and then you cut back on salt. But you do it in small increments so that behavior slowly changes. The next tenet is that people learn through personal experience and observation of others. So I don't need to experience something to have my behavior change. If someone close to me gets HPV, I might start using condoms every time I have sex. If someone close to me gets lung cancer, I might not smoke. If someone close to me is in a car accident and they're seriously injured because they don't wear a seatbelt, I might wear my seatbelt all the time. So what the whole concept is that if you can have people in the community experience something positive, then those around them might also participate. Another example would be as if you want women to get mammography every year or every other year. If they can see that other people in the community are getting mammographies or getting their blood pressure checked or visiting a healthcare provider regularly, and they see a positive consequence that follows, then they may also follow suit. Another tenet is that behaviors are learned and can be unlearned. So if a person learns to eat a high-fat diet, they can unlearn that. So for example, when I was growing up, my mother was extremely poor when she was little. So we ate the best of everything. My mother cooked with lard, butter. Everything we ate, almost everything we ate was fried. It was normal to have fried pork chops, French fries, and fried corn for a meal. And so that was a learned behavior. That's how I learned to eat. And in these theories, it's believed that we can unlearn those behaviors as well, which would be related to the first two items. And then the whole concept of rewards is very important because the way you provide rewards can also help shape behaviors. So this is the basics of behavior modification. And when you look at this chart, there the four areas. One, you can increase behavior, which is the first column, or you can decrease behavior, which is the second column. You can add to the environment, which is the first row, or you can take away from the environment. So if you add to the environment to increase behavior, that's called a positive reinforcement. And those would be things like giving rewards or incentives for people coming to your session. If someone at a health fair can win a prize, and then they're more likely to come to the health fair because they want to win the prize, that would be positive reinforcement. If you want to increase behavior but take away from the environment, that's called negative reinforcement. And those are things like not using a person's name, or when the behavior occurs, removing the negative situation. So you're actually removing something. An example of this would be if I want people to stop speeding, if they know that a punishment is that they lose their license, that would be an example of getting the behavior I want by taking away something. Decreasing behavior, you can add to the environment which is like, for example, adding something as a punishment, which with children, the easiest thing to see is a spanking. But if I add penalties for speeding so that you stop speeding, that's a punishment. If your insurance increases in order to keep you from speeding, that's a punishment. And so those are examples of adding to the environment to decrease behavior. And to take away from the environment and decrease behavior, that's called extinction. And the easiest way to do that is through ignoring the behavior. So I'm going to give you an example of a dog, and this is the easiest thing is when you think about animals. If we have two families and one family feeds the dog at the table every night, and the other family only feeds the dog from the table certain nights, and they want the dog to stop the behavior, which dog will stop the behavior the soonest if I stop feeding the dog from the table? Will it be the dog that eats every night from the table, or will it be the dog who only eats sometimes from the table? The answer is the dog that is fed every night from the table. If I stop feeding that dog from the table, it will learn that behavior quickly because there's been consistency. I always get fed at the table. They stop feeding me. I'm not going to get fed. So that's a very easy thing to have happen. But if you feed your dog from the table sometimes and sometimes not, if you stop feeding them from the table, then the conditioning is, was this a time that I'm not getting fed, or are we just not feeding me anymore? And so the behavior of begging continues. The same thing happens with gambling. And I'll just use slot machines because they're easy. Because you don't know when the reward is coming, which is incremental rewards like feeding from the table, incremental rewards like putting money in a slot machine, because you never know when the reward is coming, you continue to play because this could be the time you win. If you knew that every 10th quarter was a win, then you'd wait for somebody to put in 9 and you put in your 10th. So when we talk about behavior change, if you want people to do something consistently, in the beginning, you give them rewards every time. And then you gradually, if you want the behavior to last, you gradually go to an intermittent type of reward schedule. And we'll talk about that a little bit later with motivation. So here's some examples. If you want a child to eat vegetables, ways to increase behavior and decrease behavior with specific items on how to do that. And you can read over that on your own versus me reading to you from the slide. And this is a smoking cessation program. So if you wanted adults to quit smoking and I want to increase the non-smoking behavior, I'd add to their environment, give them positive reinforcement, give them prizes, say their names, make announcements telling everybody how great they are. And to decrease the smoking behavior, I could give a punishment, which, for example, is charging more money for health insurance. That would be an example of a way to decrease behavior with a punishment. Taking away from the behavior, if someone smokes and they cannot participate in certain activities, if they smoke, then you remove some social activities. So if you say, if you smoke during these 2 weeks, you cannot come to this social event, you're removing friends and social events from them. And to extinguish it, you would just ignore smoking and the people who smoke and only converse and reward those people who are doing positive things. So these are examples, 2 very minor examples of how to use behavior modification strategies to get people to change health behaviors. So you would use these types of theories. The main concept under this is reciprocal determinism, and that means that for every action, there's a reaction. For every behavior, there's a consequence. And by using that whole concept, you can shape behavior. If you're trying to address someone's environment or their individual behaviors, then this is a good model to consider using because it works. People do respond to rewards. If you want people to come to your health event, have prizes, have free food. So you have to be very mindful of what is important to your community, because the prizes that you give have to be prizes that would be good for your community. What they think is good, not what you think is good. So the other way to talk about this is health locus of control, and there's two concepts here. One is internal locus and external locus of control, and one is reward schedule, which I've discussed a little bit. If someone has an internal locus of control, then they want to lose weight because they want to be healthy. They feel pride when they accomplish a health goal. They're willing to do certain health behaviors because it makes them feel good internally. However, most people that are practicing poor health behaviors do not have internal locus of control. They need that external locus of control. So if they lose weight, they get a prize. If they stop smoking, their insurance rates go down. If they don't speed, they get a discount on their car insurance. So most people are motivated more by external reward systems than internal. And that goes to the reward schedule that I talked about just a little bit ago. And that is, if you want behaviors to change, in the beginning, you give rewards consistently. And then if you want the behaviors to last, as your program progresses, you move to an intermittent reward schedule, because then people will be like, well, I got to go this week because this could be the week I get a prize. And so that is how you would use health locus of control and social learning theories to change health behaviors. So if you want to change the focus on whether someone has internal or external locus control, if you're attempting to adjust locus control and you want to use reward systems, this is a good item, a good framework to consider, a good theory to consider, because it will help you shape behaviors to move people from unhealthy behaviors to healthy behaviors. So that's the end of this short lecture on social cognitive, social learning, reward, behavior modification. After this is a good time to take a break. And in the third slideshow, you can watch about other models.